Hello and welcome to a video about genetic variation. We're going to look at some of the structures that are involved in terms of how individuals have different features and different characteristics based on their genes and their DNA. But I do want you to understand what we mean by DNA, what we mean by genes, chromosomes and so on, and relate them to each other before we go on to do some of the more advanced stuff. So what I have here is an example of a human body cell. Green's not a good color. A human body cell, and this human body cell contains 46 chromosomes. Now if we were to have a look at that in slightly more detail, so let's just enlarge it a bit and just have a look at some of the chromosomes. I'll pull out just a few of these different colored ones. Let's just also get this one out of the way, the cell out of the way again. Right, if I was to look at a set of chromosomes, I've done these in different colours. What you've got to remember, I've only got 5 of each here, but what you've got to remember is that there are 23 from the father and 23 from the mother. Now, if I was to look at one particular chromosome, and let's just have a look at this one here, we could look at its structure in more detail, and what you would see is that this chromosome is actually made up of DNA which has been very tightly coiled. So I could uncoil some of it here, and there you would see a long molecule of DNA. So this is DNA, and you can actually magnify it further, and you would notice if you looked at it, let's magnify it a bit more, so let's just do a magnified region over here. You would notice is actually what we call a double helix shape. And what that means is just two molecular strands that are wrapped around each other. It looks a little something like that. But the important point here is we've got the chromosomes, which are made up of DNA. The DNA is like a long string type molecule, and along its surface we have small sections of DNA which we call the genes. So these, you can just about see the purple bits. These small sections of DNA are called genes. It's probably worth writing that out. And these genes control all your features. Okay, so it's very important that you are able to describe how this works. We've got DNA at the very smallest level. That's described as a double helix structure. And that then can coil itself up into these things called chromosomes, and these chromosomes you will find 23 that come from the father and 23 that come from the mother. And in fact what you can do is you can match up the 23 that come from the father and the 23 that come from the mother. So I've got one chromosome here, and that one actually matches up with this one, and I could go ahead and do that with most all of them. I could do it with 22 pairs. There is one pair that are different, and those are the sex chromosomes, but we'll talk about that in a later video. But why this is important also is that if you see a chromosome from the father and one from the mother, those chromosomes will carry genes for certain characteristics. So this one from the father might carry a gene here for whether you can roll your tongue or not, and the mother's chromosome that she donates will also carry a version of that gene called an allele, but we'll look at that in more detail in a later video. So the key points are double helix, the DNA coils into chromosomes, 23 from the father, 23 from the mother. Now let's just take that one step further. Remember, this is how it works. We've got 23 chromosomes in the egg, 23 in the sperm cell. These two will join together, and that will produce a fertilized egg cell which has 46 chromosomes. And remember, 23 of those from the father, so all the characteristics of the father will come and join with all the characteristics of the mother, and which features and which characteristics are shown depends on which gene is, or which version of the gene is dominant and which one is what we call recessive. So this one, the dominant gene, is the one that's more likely to show, the dominant version of the gene is the one that's more likely to show, and the recessive version of the gene is one that will only show if the dominant version is not there. And we'll look at this again in more detail in another video, but for now there's some important background information here that you do need to know to be able to do the slightly harder stuff, which will come in later videos. So thanks for watching. Do watch over again if you feel you need to go over it again, but that's it for now, and I'll see you again soon.